It's so kind of you to welcome us like this, to open your home to us. And we are beginning to wonder if we'd find anywhere to stay tonight. It's been a long day. How many of us? Well, there are 12 of us, actually. 13, including the master. And some women, too. But don't worry, they've all got places to stay. It's just Thaddeus and me. We're still looking for a place. The master, he's over at Mary and Martha's house. He always stays there when we're here in Bethany. Simon is with him, and James and John, too, right, Thaddeus? Yeah, they're always together, the three of them, and they're usually with the master. The others have found places here and there. Judas got himself a private room again. I don't know how he always does that. He's resourceful. You got to say that about him. So you're familiar with the master. Oh, yes, of course. From the last time we came through Bethany, the whole Lazarus thing. Yeah, it's hard to miss that. Yes, we're his disciples. This is Thaddeus, and I'm James. No, not that James. That's James, the son of Zebedee. I'm the other James, the son of Alphaeus. I know, it's confusing. Oh, what that is? No, they don't need to know about that. All right. They call me James the Less sometimes. Yeah, the Less, James the Less. I don't know why. It's just always been that way. I was short when I was a kid. Maybe that's when it got started. Maybe I was younger than some other James. It's just who I've always been. That's all. No, I'm not a fisherman. We're not all fishermen. What do? Nothing much, believe me. A little this, a little that. Nothing noteworthy, believe me. No, I'm not the tax collector. That's Matthew. Matthew's smart. He's rich. I'm none of those things. I'm just James. No, I'm not the zealot. That's Simon. No, not that Simon, the other Simon. The political one, the passionate one. That's not me either. I'm just James. That's all. The other James. James the Less, if it helps. We'd love to sit down, actually. We've been on our feet all day. How long have we been on the road? Well, that depends, I guess, Thaddeus, right? It was 4 or 5 days ago we left from Galilee, but the truth is we've been on the road for a long time now, going on 3 years. It began back in Galilee with the baptizer. This prophet, John, came out of nowhere, out of the wilderness, preaching repentance. Really strong, convicting. A voice like we haven't heard in Israel in a long time. Got people all stirred up. And some of our guys, they started following him. They were disciples of John, of the baptizer first. But then Jesus came along. We try not to say his name out loud too often these days. It's getting a little tense out there. The crowds, they're bigger than ever and unruly. The religious leaders, they're angrier than ever. I don't know what they're going to do next. The Romans, they're leaving us alone at this point, but they're watching. And after what happened this morning, I don't know. It could get rough out there. I'll get to this morning later. Let me go back to Galilee. It was back in Galilee. That's when I first went out to hear him teach. But when you hear the master preach, it's like nothing you've ever heard in the synagogue or even in the temple courts. When the master teaches us, he's so down to earth. He explains the scriptures and you understand them. He tells these simple stories that you just can't forget. When the master's done preaching, you're ready to follow him right off a cliff. Or maybe fall on your face. don't get me wrong. I love the synagogue. I love the scriptures. Our people, our way of life, I always have. Just always felt like that there should be more. And when the master teaches, there's so much more than you ever realized. And that's what I've always wanted for Israel, more. I mean, surely there has to be more to our faith than reciting prayers and arguing over fine points of the law. Surely Yahweh has more in mind for his people than eking out a living like this, living under Rome's oppression, hoping they'll just leave us alone. And what about the promises to King David? Your house and your kingdom will endure forever. Your throne will be established forever. Where is this throne? Where is this kingdom? What about the promises, the prophecies concerning Jerusalem? The sons of your oppressors will bow down to you. They will call you city of the Lord, Zion on a hill. When will these things come to pass? When will the Lord restore the fortunes of his people? We've been waiting a long time. And so when word began to spread in Galilee about this miracle worker, this teacher, it got my attention. You see, I know some of these guys. I've known them my whole life. We live in small towns up in Galilee. Everyone in Bethsaida knows everyone. Everyone knows Simon the fisherman, right? I mean, Simon enters a room, you know it. James, John, the Zebedee, they've been running boats on Galilee for generations. I knew all of them. Now, they didn't know me probably. No one really knows me. I'm not the kind of person you notice. At least I wasn't until the master came along. I still remember the day. We've been following for a few weeks. There was a pretty good group of us at that point. And one day the master called us all together. There were, 70 or so? 70 or so of us, plus some women. He called us all together like he had something important to say. It looked like he'd been up all night. He did that sometimes, just praying. And he looked at the whole crowd of us, one by one, it seemed. And then he began calling names. Simon. He would later on name him Peter. Andrew. That's Simon's brother. James, son of Zebedee. John, son of Zebedee. What was he doing? Was he choosing his disciples? Right, usually it's the other way around, right? The disciple chooses a master and asks if he can follow. But he was choosing his own followers. That's how it always is with the master. He's always surprising you like that. He kept going. Philip, Nathaniel, we call him Bartholomew sometimes. Matthew, also known as Levi. Thomas, James, that's my name. He could have been calling my name. No one calls my name. I began looking for some other more notable James in the crowd, but I realized he was looking at me. Son of Alphaeus, he said, as if he wanted everyone to know he was thinking of me. Oh, right. Then Thaddeus. Thaddeus was next, and Judas, and the other Judas from Carioth. That was it. 12 of us. 12. Like the tribes of Israel. I mean, we tried not to get ahead of ourselves, but he had chosen us. He had chosen me. I wasn't first on the list, or third, or seventh, or 10th, or any of those good numbers. 9th. I mean, who remembers 9th? At least we weren't last, right, Thaddeus? Not that we keep track of those kinds of things. He chose us, he said, to be with him and to go out from him. Now, the being with him part, I could understand. That's what disciples do. They're with their master. They walk and talk with them. They learn from them, and they become like their master. But the going out part, he seemed to make a point of it. He called us apostles, sent ones. But he chose me. That's the part I can't get over. What did he see in me? I mean, the others I can understand. Peter, James, John, they're leaders. Everyone follows them. Andrew, everyone likes Andrew. He's always bringing people to Jesus. Judas from Carioth, he's good with numbers and denarii. He's always got a plan. But the rest of us, I mean, I'm not sure I would have chosen us. Matthew, he's a crook, a tax collector. People hated him. Nathaniel, he was a skeptic from the beginning. The master had to practically drag him out from under that fig tree. Thomas, he's just gloomy, you know. Point is, we're all just pretty ordinary men, is what I'm saying. Yeah, you're right about that, Thaddeus. We've got some pretty impressive women with us, actually. Some of them have means. I mean, they support our work. Joanna, her husband works in Herod's household. I mean, she knows things. My mother, Mary, actually travels with us. No, I know, that's the master's mother is named Mary, but that's a different Mary. No, not from Magdala, that's a different Mary. That's the one who had the demons cast out. This is just Mary, my mother of James. Yeah, she travels with us, they all do. I know. What rabbi includes women in his circle? It's how it always is with him. Well, like I said, we've been on the road really since the beginning. Town to town, village to village, all over Galilee. Capernaum, Cana, Bethsaida, Nain. We actually went back to Nazareth once, the master's hometown. Didn't go well there. But they ran us out of town, nearly ran him off a cliff. And when we weren't on the road, we were in that crazy boat. I don't know how many times we went back and forth across that lake. The fishermen loved it. The rest of us, not really. Remember that storm, Thaddeus? Remember the master, how it was the one time the master nearly lost it with us. Maybe it's because we woke him up. I don't know. Oh, you of small faith, why are you so afraid? We thought we were going to die, that's why. But then, next moment, the wind has stopped, the waves have stopped, and the lake is perfectly smooth. And that's when we knew this was no ordinary rabbi. We even went into Samaria. I mean, it felt strange just being there. But the master seemed perfectly at home. Remember that woman at the well in the middle of the day? He spent hours with her. Who does that? A woman, a Samaritan. Yeah, and James and John trying to call down fire on that village they didn't like. Now, the master put them in their place pretty quick. The rest of us didn't mind seeing that, actually. They get kind of full of themselves, those two. Sons of thunder. Oh, yeah. Miracles, all kinds. Blind eyes open. Crippled people up and walking around. Lepers cleansed. Demoniacs set free. You wouldn't believe the things we've seen. The lives changed by a word, a touch from the master. And then he sent us out to do the same, to preach and heal. Imagine that. Me, James the Less, a preacher, a healer. A nobody from Galilee traveling the countryside, doing the work of God, speaking the words of God. Who would have thought? The best part, though, was just walking along the road with him, listening to him talk and teach. He told these stories about the kingdom mostly. The kingdom is like a mustard seed that grows and becomes the largest tree in the garden, and all the birds flock to its branches. The kingdom is like a treasure hidden in a field, is like a pearl of great price. You sell everything to get it. We pretended like we understood those stories, and then we tried to figure them out around the campfire at night. Sometimes we just had to ask him. He'd roll his eyes, but he'd explain what they meant. We loved hearing those stories. That's all we wanted to hear about was the kingdom. The kingdom at last. Israel made great again. The throne of David restored. All the nations bowing down. It's time. We think he's it. We think he's the one, the Messiah. That's why a few days ago when he announced we were going to Jerusalem, we got so excited. I mean, he had this look in his eye. Like the time had come, like nothing was going to stop him. That's what we've been waiting for. But as soon as we got on the road, we sensed that things were different. Like the master was just more serious all of a sudden. We met these guys on the road, and they wanted to join us. All they wanted to do was go back home and take care of a few things and say goodbye to their families. The master would have none of it. Let the dead bury the dead, he said. Whoever follows me can never turn back. Wow. It made us stop and think about what we were getting into. And the stories got darker. A rich man who builds himself a brand new barn, fills it with grain, and dies the next day. Another man stuck in Hades forever because he ignored a beggar at his table. Guests of honor being asked to forfeit their seats and go take the lowest place at the foot of the table. He told us things were going to get harder. He said we would be persecuted, that our loyalty to him would be tested, that we'd be tempted to disown him. Disown him? After all we've seen, after everything he's done for us? How could he even suggest such a thing? And then he began to talk about death and suffering and rejection. I mean, what was he talking about? Look how popular he is. Everybody loves him. And how powerful. He makes fools out of his opponents. He slips from their grasp every time. Who could stop him? Who wants to stop him? No, he must be mistaken about that. He underestimates his strength, our strength. I mean, Yahweh is with us. He would never allow those things to happen. Well, none of us dare tell him that. Simon tried that once. I've never seen the fishermen get quiet that fast. This morning, finally, we made it to Jerusalem. Climbing the long hill with all the other pilgrims on their way in for the Passover, singing the songs of ascent as we went. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing in your gates, O Jerusalem. There the thrones for judgment stand. There the throne of David is established." We sang them like never before. And as we came up over the rise on the top of Mount Olives, with the city coming into view, there was this great crowd waiting for us. Like they'd heard we were coming, that he was coming, the master, the miracle worker from Galilee. They lined the streets. Someone brought him a young colt so he could ride into the city like a conquering king returning home. It was actually a donkey, which seemed a little strange. What conqueror rides in on a donkey? But it seemed like the master wanted it that way, like he'd arranged it. You see what I mean? He always surprises you. And the people threw their cloaks out on the road to soften our steps. Right. Like the people of old welcoming Jehu into the city. They waved palm branches to cool us as we came by, hailing us like a conquering army. Hosanna, they said. Right, Psalm 118. Save us, Lord. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessing is the coming kingdom of our father David. It was a glorious morning. The people of Yahweh singing his praises. The whole his city gleaming in the midday sun on the eve of Passover. The king returning to his city, but gentle, riding on a donkey, just like Zechariah predicted. It was our best day ever this morning as disciples. And finally, our master was getting the recognition he deserved, and us too. I mean, we've been with him the whole way, all those days away from home, all those nights with no place to lay our heads, laying under the stars wondering, is he the one? Are we on the right path? But now, suddenly, it was all coming together. It was all becoming clear. The king was returning to his city. He would take his throne, and ours too. We were with him. Even the master enjoyed it, I think. It was the first time I've ever seen him allow people to say things like that out loud. Usually he's telling people to be quiet. He's dispersing the crowd. He's hustling us away into the boat or down the road away from the cheers. But today, right, Thaddeus, today, he received the praises of his people as if for once they were getting it right. Everyone except the religious leaders, of course, they were not happy with what was happening. They told him to stop. They told him to make us stop, to be quiet. And they looked right at us when they said it. But you know what? I wasn't afraid. I wasn't intimidated. The master said to them, if they're quiet, the very rocks will cry out. That's why I love being with the master. When I'm with him, I'm not afraid. I'm not limited by my past, by what people say about me, by what they call me. With him, I'm more than I thought I could be. Life, faith is more than I ever imagined it would be. You know, I'm thinking Thaddeus. Remember that story he told, the one about the king returning to his country? No, not that one, the other one. The one about the servants, there are 3 servants. Yeah, there's a king is going off to a distant land. But before he leaves, he puts 3 of his servants to work for him. And he gives one of them 10 talents of silver, another 5 talents, and another 1 talent. And he tells them to put them to work. He wants them to do something with them, to increase his holdings so he has more talents of silver when he comes back. Well, I've been thinking, Thaddeus, I think I get it. People like Peter and James and John, they're like 10-talent servants. They're so strong and bold and well-spoken. Others, Andrew, Matthew, they're like 5-talent servants. I mean, they've brought so many people to the master. And then others, Thaddeus and me, we're one-talent servants. Maybe not as strong, as bold as some of these others, but the Master chose us. He sees something in us. We have something to offer. And I want to put it to work. I want to increase the Master's holding. I want him to have more glory and more greatness and more followers. So, what's that, Thaddeus? A new nickname? James the More? I like that. James the More. It's got a ring to it. Think it'll stick? Like I said, it was a great morning, full of promise for the days to come. And we were reveling in the glory of it all. But as we got nearer to the city, I noticed something about the Master. His countenance had changed. I don't think anyone else noticed. See, I don't talk a lot, but I listen and I watch. And I could tell something was bothering him. I mean, he was still riding along, receiving the praises, but he had this faraway look in his eye, like he could see something we couldn't see. I didn't want to intrude on his space, but I just got a little closer. And I could see tears running down his cheeks. He was weeping over the city, it seemed. The last time I saw the Master weep, well, it was right here in Bethany at Lazarus' tomb. But those tears I can understand. His friend had just died. But what were these tears about on such a glorious day? I got a little closer and I could hear him speaking softly but firmly. If you, Jerusalem, had only known on this day what would bring you peace, but it is hidden from your eyes. The days are coming when your enemies will come against you and encircle you, and there will not be one stone left upon another, because you did not recognize the time of God's coming to you. What would prompt him to say such a dark and terrible thing on a day like this? What was he seeing that we couldn't see? I was greatly troubled by it. No, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to spoil the day. But I've been thinking about it all afternoon and on the way back here to Bethany this evening. Is there trouble waiting for us in Jerusalem? Does it have anything to do with the death and the suffering that he spoke about? But whose death? What suffering? I don't know what the future holds. I only know that tomorrow the king returns to his city and his servants are with him. And that's you and me, Thaddeus. And I want to do my part. I want to do my part for the Master because he noticed me. He saw something in me. Because of him, I'm becoming a different person. I'm becoming the person that he wants me to be. It's the person I think I've always wanted to be. Whatever the future holds, I know that up ahead with Jesus, there's more. Behind me, only less. So wherever this road leads, wherever he leads, I'm going to follow and never, ever turn back. You've been very kind to welcome us like this, but Thaddeus and I, we better get some rest. I think we have some important days ahead of us.